GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your host, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast. We are back on a regular scheduling basis because Spartan season is over. No more races.
Pat G got himself several degrees that he can hang on the wall behind him and make himself look fucking smarter than he already is.
Yep.
I mean, you might as well call him Professor Pat. Whoa, we're putting that on a t-shirt, Professor Pat.
Professor Pat. Oh my God, I have way too many nicknames. Pat G. The G stands for gangster. Now I got Professor Pat. I got the Ganchais with Ganchai Sports and Gaming. I am a man of many talents.
He wears many hats, ladies and gentlemen.
I do.
He hangs them on the rack behind his door. Yeah, so we're back.
Actually, the rack's more like in front of me. On my wall.
So you see, all right, I wish everyone could see what is behind each one of us or in front of us right now, because like you look at the wall of various Funkos behind Pat G and the Jump Boost flag that he's got hanging on his wall and the degrees that he's got hanging behind him. And it's like, I've got a exercise bike, a Logan movie poster, and in front of me is a shit ton of medals and a bottle of Chris Jericho's bubbly. Like this is how real it gets with with us. What's
funny is when you watch like podcasts from people, like they're in like the most like professionals type setting they could possibly be in, or like basic. I'm sitting here like, yo, I am in my bedroom. This is like my bedroom / office. Here's my shit. Enjoy it. Whatever.
I'm sitting here. I'm like, I'm a sweat on that motherfucker. You know, that mother fudger in a couple hours. I'm sitting here. I'm like, yeah, that's where my junk sweat goes on the floor behind me. But yeah, we're back in business. And I mean, speaking of business, man, the wrestling business is once again.
It
was a weird week again for pro wrestling, bro.
It's been a weird year. But of course, now that we're coming up to the end of 2021, everybody's back in full attendance. Everybody's having shows, whether it's your big national companies, WWE, AEW, New Japan, and Impact. Of course, as you come to the end of the year, there's changes and announcements and releases and much, much more. Of course, the big one being Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor recently announcing that they are going to be ceasing operations come 2022. This is a big one. When this broke, when the Hunt Valley-based Sinclair Broadcast Group made the announcement that they are shutting down ROH, Ring of Honor Wrestling, for at least the first 3 months of 2022 while they reevaluate their business. They want to reimagine ROH. ROH tweeted out the statement, "Throughout the pandemic, our top priority was to keep everyone healthy and safe. And despite not producing any live events for over 18 months, we were able to keep everyone fully contracted. We now find ourselves at a time where we need to make changes to our business operations and are planning a pivot for Ring of Honor with a new mission and strategy. This year will culminate with a final battle in December, and we'll be taking the first quarter of 2022 to work internally to reimagine ROH. ROH has the most dedicated fans in the industry, and we appreciate the loyalty and patience as we reconceptualize ROH. We anticipate returning to live events in April for the Super Card of Honor with a new fan-focused product and provide a unique experience for wrestling fans. When RH released their statement, it was a lot of people were taken aback by it, but a lot of people commended it because ROH made the announcement that they will be paying all their talent throughout the rest of the year. And if talent's contracts lasted past the end of 2021, they would be fulfilled up to March 31st, 2022.
While they have the opportunity to still go someplace else to work.
Yes. Now,
I'm going to say this. When that bomb dropped, the first thing that went through my head is, this was a big hit for professional wrestling, but you have to think that there are a lot of companies out there, not just professional wrestling companies, but a lot of companies that their overhead, their expenses, trying to make it through this pandemic, they didn't even last 6 months. I mean, the restaurant business restaurant and dining took a hit. Movie theater chains, closed down their doors. I mean, entertainment venues were out. I mean, you have to think Ring of Honor kept entertainment going. And even during the pandemic, they were still making stars. Like you can't deny like guys like Danhausen weren't getting over. Guys like Dalton Castle weren't getting over. The Briscoes were still like one of the top tag teams that everyone talked about. I mean, their programming was still available to be seen, even there wasn't an audience. I am glad to hear that the Super Card is still on the table in April. And I really hope that they're able to reconfigure financially in order to bring the product back. I would not like to see another wrestling company. I don't want to say pass on, but I mean, I don't want to see another wrestling company fold, especially considering that up until the pandemic, Ring of Honor was still putting on fantastic shows. I mean, they and New Japan with the G1 Supercard in 2019, they filled the Garden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, they were doing phenomenal, and the stars that they were putting out were great. I mean, the pandemic took a hit on WWE to the point where in the last year, and we'll talk about this more in depth in a little bit, 100 superstars were let go. I think that it is a class act for them to uphold the financial end of the contracts while letting them pursue other options in order to put food on the table. Because when it comes down to it, all these performers, these wrestlers are going out there in order to earn a living. And if that means that they have to restructure the company and come back in maybe a more downsized fashion in order to be able to tour, to make money, or to be able to let their individuals go and make money and then come back and try and retool everything, fans won't forget Ring of Honor. In fact, I guarantee at the Supercard in April, Ring of Honor will be back and bigger than ever. I mean, this will just give a chance for guys like, unfortunately, Danhausen is very evil and very injured right now. And it gives some of these other performers a chance to maybe recoup and then go out there on the independent scene and keep their name viable. It sucks, but at the same token, this is trial by fire. They're not closing completely, or else they would have said, this is it. We're closing our doors. Goodbye. This was, we'll see you in April. We're just trying to figure things out. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Sinclair lost a substantial amount of money during this COVID lockdown and pandemic. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it was something to the tune of close to $200 million. Am I correct?
I believe so. I know they did lose a lot of money over the pandemic. So it was let me see. Yeah, they
research.
Back on August 4th of 2021, so 3 months ago.
Yep.
They beat revenue they beat the estimate, but they reported a huge loss. Like it was, I think over like 20 between 2020 and 2021, they hit revenue goals, but they overall lost like close to $3 billion.
Jeez. And I mean, all entertainment lost.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think, I mean, some people lost so much money they sued Disney over it. You know what I mean? So let's be honest. Some people lost a lot of money. Some people didn't. But I mean, this goes to show you why the importance of live events is such a big deal, which is why this week WWE going over to, first the Middle East with Blood Money, number 9 or whatever. And then, of course, they did a European tour. It's like, that's a huge, huge accomplishment following what just happened over the last, like almost 18 months. With that being said, a lot of these performers are going to land on their feet. I really hated seeing the rumors of like, oh my God, Tony Khan's going to buy all these dudes' contracts. It's like, it's not needed. These guys are going to come back in 6 months and you're going to be amazed at what Ring of Honor is able to put out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing is they, WrestlingInc.com reported after the announcement was made that when ROH does come back, they're going to be basically operating as like a high-end, super independent wrestling company, similar to your PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrillas, and GCWs, where they bring in top talents for shows. Though this will make it difficult for champions, as there's no guarantee they can make every show. And then, of course, there's the chance that they could get signed and not be able to drop the title on their show, which I don't think is going to be the case, because with the situation where MSK, which was who were the Rascals and Impact, they were the PWG tag team champions and ended up not being able to drop the titles on a PWG show. But I think now with the quote unquote forbidden door being open, I think that if ROH has talents that end up signing with anybody that's not WWE, like a AEW or an Impact, I think that those two companies, which are, or even New Japan, I think if ROH comes back and they have talent and they sign with anybody that's not WWE, I think that they would be allowed to, and they are a champion. I think they are going to be allowed the right to drop the title and help make somebody.
I think even WWE, like, we don't give WWE enough credit, or Vince McMahon enough credit for the take care of your business and then come over to us. I think that they've done that with past performers.
Done that, yeah. WWE's done that with past performers, but it's more of WWE's also that, like, when they've brought in people and we're talking in the past, like when you brought in people from the independents, they've made them aware of it at least 3 months in advance that, hey, this is your start date. You have until here to get your business in order with whatever other agreements you have out there.
And I mean, it's kind of the mandates have been rumored that WWE is starting to pull away from the independent wrestler model and go more towards the football players.
They want the athletic player and everything.
Yeah, which is fine. Like let it be known that even I will say, hey, have at it. If you don't want to bring someone in that has a built-in fan base in case you lose them, that's on you. But with that being said, even speaking on that, you have a company in WWE that over the last 2 years has let go 100 performers. And, even this week, you had another crop of performers. And I think the thing that shocked a lot of people is there were some mainstay performers in there. And there were also some performers that people were like, we thought you were building these individuals more than you were. And that, I think, is one of the most shocking parts of this last crop that were let go.
Yeah.
Not as shocking as someone like a Bray Wyatt or a Braun Strowman, mind you. But some of these took me back in wow, they released Cross and Keith Lee. Like, what?
Yeah, this is so Sports Wiki, not saying they're the most viable source, but they did release a list. They released a list of all the talents released in 2020 and 2021. It's 119 total wrestlers. So you have AOP, Rusev, Cain Velasquez, Zack Ryder, Maria and Mike Kanellis, Primo, Epico Cologne, Rowan, Sarah Stock, Tay Conti, Dash Wilder, Scott Dawson, Yi Fang, Nick Orgelli, Muhammad Fahim, Luke Harper, Jack Gallagher, Jazzy Gare-Bear, Sarah Logan, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, EC3, Leo Rush, Serena Deeb, Kurt Hawkins, Renee Young, Heath Slater, Eric Young, Curtis Axel, No Way Jose, Diano Perazzo, Cassius Ono, Andrade.
Jesus.
Mike Chiodo,
listening to this list hurts me.
Billy Kay and Peyton Royce of the Iconics, Mickey James, Chelsea Green, Bo Dallas, Daniel Bryan, Jessamine Duke, Velveteen Dream, Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, Lana, Ruby Riott, Murphy, Mark Henry, Tony Nese, Tyler Breeze, the Bollywood Boys. Let's see, Killian Danes, Bray Wyatt, Ric Flair, Mercedes Martinez, Bobby Fish. There's a lot of, not to mention all the rest of the talent that wasn't named because they were developmental talent, and whatnot. So it's one of those. It's one of the things of over the past 2 years, they have released 119 talents. With the recent crop of releases, there were some conflicting reports. There were some conflicting reports about why they were done. They said there was an email sent out by John Laurinaitis saying it was due to budget cuts, but then further news came out that at least 5 of the talents released were released due to being unvaccinated. The major one being Nia Jax.
I did hear that rumor, but I did not have any confirmation.
Yeah, no, it was, while there wasn't any, while I didn't see any concrete, like, actual confirmation that was the reason Nia Jax released, it was said through multiple sources that was the reason she was let go, is because she was unvaccinated. The full list, of course, Frankie Monet, Tara Valkyrie, Ember Moon, Scarlett, Karrion Kross, Oni Lorcan, B-Fab of Hit Row. The B-Fab one is the one that caught a lot of people off guard because of Hit Row just getting called up to SmackDown with the draft. So that was the one that kind of caught a lot of people off. Grand Metalik, Lynn Storretto, so Lucha Party, Keith Lee, Mia Yim, Harry Smith, Eva Marie, which a lot of people made fun of because after they made their, like, the releases a couple of months ago, they ended up bringing Eva Marie back, and all of a sudden, and people were making the jokes of like, hey, that's great you released these people due to budget cuts, but brought Eva Marie back for 4 months of, like, a month worth of television shows.
Yeah, a month worth of television shows. And also, I mean, what was her job? Putting over Dewdrop? Essentially. Yeah. Like, and we didn't even need her to put over Dewdrop. She could have done that on her own just by showing up. You know, one can't help but notice the number of former NXT champions that have been released from the company. There's only a couple that have won that title that are either still with the company or have anything to do with WWE. I'm saddened by this recent set of releases because you have Cross and Scarlett, who were such a good pairing in NXT, who really, they strapped that rocket ship right to the back and just launched both of those two into space. And then when we saw Karrion get called up to the main roster, his entire gimmick was changed. And then he starts wearing this weird bondage gear gimmick, to say the least. And it was funny because it was shown on Twitter that he made fun of the helmet that he had to make or had to wear.
Somebody had commented on wanting to buy it, and he responded with like insulting it. It was the same thing with Keith Lee, but Keith Lee didn't really insult anything. It was somebody made the statement of him coming up with the name Bearcat, and he's like, nope, that wasn't me. That was beyond my control. I'm gonna pause. So the thing with the releases, of course, WWE, it was interesting because, of course, the first round of releases came back in April of this year with the likes of Samoa Joe, Mickie James, Chelsea Green. And then June saw the releases of Strowman, Black, Lana, Ruby Riott, and a few others. The biggest thing with this one is after they announced the releases, WWE had their third quarter earning meeting and for 2021, which was announced like the same day or later in the day or whatever, like after the releases happened. and they announced their third quarter 2021 financial results for the period ending on September 30th. They reported a revenue of $255.8 million, which was an increase of 15% or $34.2 million. They credited the increase with higher ticket sales, venue merchandise sales from the return of touring. Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon touted a better than expected performance in the press release. He was quoted during the release meeting. During the third quarter, we returned to live event touring with record average attendance, driving our better than expected performance. Even with only one large-scale international event due to COVID-related circumstances, we will exceed our previous financial guidance given the overall strength in each of our business lines. We think our performance highlights the strength of our brand globally and supports our belief that we are well positioned to maximize the value of our content and drive long-term shareholder value. At the time, the CFO Christina Stalin added, in the quarter, our better than expected revenue of $255.8 million, adjusted OABDA of $77.9 million reflected the robust demand for our live events as returned to touring and attracted attendance above 2019 levels. This was the thing of, okay, guys, what's going on? Because here's one side going, hey, all these outlets are reporting you're releasing another 15 plus talents due to budget cuts, but you're stating that you're seeing a 15% increased profit margin on your numbers that you had projected yourselves and had a budget of almost $260 million in the third quarter.
And didn't they fire their CFO after this meeting? She was, I don't want to say fired. I don't want to get liable, but wasn't it reported that she was released and replaced?
There was a report that a high-ranking official left. Let go. Yeah, hold on.
I believe it was their CFO.
No, it wasn't the CFO. It was Stan Stansky, who was the senior vice president of creative services. The person that's the CFO now replaced who they let go earlier this year.
Oh, okay. All right.
When Mark Carano left.
Okay, then I misspoke on that one. Please don't sue me. So, one of the things that gets me is that it does throw up a little bit of a red flag, like you're saying one thing.
Yeah, it was, according to various sources, Stan Stansky was a 15-year company veteran that was let go. He served as the senior vice president of creative services. That's a very high-level job in any corporate structure. He had a ton of responsibility for the branding and presentation of the product. It was quoted as Stansky's departure has been quite the shock as word traveled around the company this evening. One person described his departure as the ultimate proof that no one is safe, and yet another reminder that this isn't the same company it was a year ago. A lot of people have, just with everything going on, the releases, and that there are two opinions of thinking. One is Vince McMahon is getting everything in order to make a sale for the company, or they're getting everything. Vince McMahon is pulling everything tighter to the vest because of the quote unquote failure of Triple H and NXT on Wednesday nights.
Well, with that being said, I would like to call fuck you on that one because I'm sorry. This is where I go off a little bit. This is where Pat G kind of lets me say some stuff, and I'm sure our friends at Gear Network are going to say, God, Dan, why do you open your mouth? Every single time that Triple H has built someone of any relevance or importance in NXT over the last several years, they get brought up, completely dismantled. Everything that the fans liked about them and were excited about seeing in a call-up, either post big event, one of the big four, or in the big four, Royal Rumble being one of them, they are completely disassembled. And their character is pretty much made a laughingstock, with the exception of a few. Riddle being very beneficial of this, but Riddle is pretty much Jay from the Jay and Silent Bob movies and Rob Van Dam amplified.
Riddle has, a lot of people said Riddle has been able to avoid what has happened to so many others due to the fact that Vince McMahon finds him hilarious as hell.
Yeah, I mean, this is also a dude who is so allegedly so stoned during one of the promos that he started to talk, figured out he couldn't remember what he said, and scooted away. And Randy Orton was like, I want to work with that. Yeah. Because that was hilarious. And it was on live TV. He's able to improvise. But with that being said, that is one example of a slew of wrestlers that have been turned to dog shit. The recent releases, including, Karrion Kross, Bearcat, Keith Lee. Was it just Bearcat Lee? Like what?
Yeah,
what,
it was Bearcat Lee. It was just Bearcat Keith Lee.
Yeah. Okay, Keith Lee, Scarlett, who went MIA after Karrion got the call up. Yeah, and I'm gonna even say this as recent as some fan favorites like Finn Balor. His most recent call up to the main roster, to SmackDown, did not go as successful as possible because, let's be honest, we saw the complete shatting on the Demon King in his loss to Roman Reigns. That was one of the weakest finishers probably since Hell in a Cell 2019 with The Fiend.
Yeah.
Okay. We have seen over and over and over and over again characters that Triple H has spent months and years building to be viable, only to have them be completely ruined by the time they get up to the main roster or within a few months of making it up to the main roster. I mean, you can look at everyone from FTR, Enzo and Cass, Samoa Joe. There have been so many. Shinsuke Nakamura. It took Shinsuke several years to bounce back from what happened to him when he got called up. And the argument can be made, it's up to them in order to make themselves. Vince isn't going to make them. Well, Vince is the one giving them television time. And if Vince is the one saying, hey, I want you to creatively do this, even if it sucks, you have to try to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. But there are just sometimes you leave a good thing alone. And if you're spending all this time and effort and money building these characters up on one program, if NXT is just supposed to be another brand, they should seamlessly jump over without any character changes. You don't need to change a Keith Lee. I mean, Keith Lee versus Brock Lesnar wrote itself in the Royal Rumble for less than a minute's worth of work. Yeah. I mean, for God's sakes, it makes no sense. So to shoulder any of the blame of Triple H's apparent, or believed loss to AEW is a professional wrestling show that happens to be on the number one network for drama.
Yep. And the thing is it's been essentially spoken into existence by a few avenues. is WWE is a sports entertainment company that deals with professional wrestling, where AEW is a professional wrestling company that dabbles in sports entertainment. Case in point, the recent Halloween episode of Dynamite with the Dark Order versus the Elite or whatever, and
I ain't afraid of no budge.
Yeah. So it's the thing of, listen, it's 2021. You have two major companies on television in AEW, WWE. They're both going to deal with the professional wrestling aspect, but there's going to be some entertainment aspect to it, because not everybody's there for the wrestling. They're there for the storytelling. They're there for the entertainment value of it.
Yes,
that's what wrestling is now in 2021. Is how much you can grab a crowd with your ability to entertain in your craft.
You have to look at both companies. And if you were to do a side-by-side comparison of both companies, the amount of wrestling that is seen on Mondays and Fridays for the WWE product, and compare that minute by minute to the two main programs of AEW. AEW provides more wrestling, more in-ring competition, time-wise. WWE basically builds everything on those programs so that you tune into the pay-per-view in order to watch the wrestling that you're looking for. Essentially, they use their television time as 4 hours of advertising for their 4-hour pay-per-view once a month. Case in point is Brock Lesnar versus, actually, I'm going to even take that one step further. I believe CM Punk had over 150 title defenses on television and house shows. Someone threw out some weird thing during his 434 days as champion, right?
Yeah.
In the almost 428 days that Roman Reigns has been champion currently, he's had 16 matches that have been televised. I mean, you have to look side by side. That's because most of his stuff is done in a promo form to sell you on the pay-per-view match that you're going to see. Even in his most recent feud with Brock Lesnar, house show matches notwithstanding, and even most of those house show matches, I believe, were triple threat, were 3-on-3 tag team matches with the Bloodline versus insert team here. The thing that gets me about that is you can look at that one of two ways. AEW is providing wrestling fans the alternative that they say they are. AEW is the wrestling show. And when they do tell a storyline, they're able to do it very effectively. And I will give them credit for that. But they have yet to break into the mainstream the way that WWE is in the mainstream. Okay. They already have given you their quote 4 pillars of their company in Jungle Boy, Orange Cassidy, Maxwell J. Friedman, and Darby Allin.
Yep.
I mean, some would argue Sammy would be one of the pillars. I honestly think it's Orange Cassidy, but we'll argue Sammy's on the t-shirt. But those 5 guys are the ones that are going to break through in the next coming years. There's a lot of investment in those guys. You don't see that level of investment in WWE. And even John Cena has said that himself. Like, there's not a lot of investment in young guys because they almost feel like they're expendable. And with all these recent cuts, kind of feels that way. Kind of feels like, we're going to call you up. And if you don't, exceed our expectations in the first 2 weeks, then you're gone.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the thing is with WWE is I think WWE is the type of company that they are going to give you, and I said it previously, they're going to give you that family-friendly entertainment that attracts the younger kids with just enough of the adult stuff to keep mom and dad around, and then mix in like the really good stuff with certain talents to attract the long-term hardcore wrestling fans. And it's the thing of WWE's never going away. The only way that it's ever going to fully go away is if Vince McMahon one day decides that he is done with wrestling, he doesn't want to do it anymore, he wants to enjoy the rest of his remaining life, and he's just like, somebody else can deal with this. I'm done. And whether he decides that it's going to be given to Stephanie, Shane, and Triple H, or he's going to sell it off to someone, whether that be NBC Universal, whether it be Fox, whether it be Disney, whether it be whoever, it's Vince McMahon is going to get to a point where I have spent my entire life in this industry. I have spent every dime that I have made in my life to make this better. It's time someone else can do this, because I want to enjoy the remaining time I have in my life. Which
look, I'm not going to be one of these people that bashes Vince McMahon. I still watch the WWE. Okay. My thing with wrestling is this, and we were talking about something similar off air. If you don't like the product, don't watch it. I hate to say this the way I'm about to say it, but between Monday Night Raw and SmackDown and the pay-per-views and the burn and all these other things, I mean, if WWE programming is so terrible and you don't find any enjoyment, don't watch it. It's not like there's not alternative. For God's sakes, Okada just called out Buddy Matthews today. The day of this recording, Okada just called out a guy that everyone was like, he's going to go to AEW. No, he's not. He's going to go face, Okada in California next week. For God's sakes, you live in a time where professional wrestling is wide open, where you can, it's not that weird era of 2001 to 2014 again. There are options out there for great professional wrestling. That is
viable options. There's viable options. It's not like that after WCW and ECW was bought by WWF, WWE, that there wasn't anywhere else to go. Yeah, you had your higher end independent companies like ROH, IWA Mid-South, PWG, and everything, where you saw the likes of Brian Danielson and CM Punk and Adam Cole and the Young Bucks and Kevin Steen and El Generico rise up and get the experience that led them to getting a shot in bigger situations, whether it be WWE or New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's the thing of a lot people have options now. Look at what Matt Cardona has done, formerly known as Zack Ryder, since his release earlier this year. He's shown up in Impact. He has shown up in AEW. He has shown up at GCW.
He not only showed up at GCW, he showed up at GCW, won their title, and has used that to become one of the biggest heels in wrestling because he is essentially Mick Foley's anti-hardcore from ECW in 95 and 96. One could argue that he is such a student of the game that he is taking that feverish underground following that CZW fans are, and basically becoming like telling them that putting out releases like, the CGW locker room needs to dress more professionally if they're going to come to shows, because that is how professional wrestlers, that's how entertainers are. And you just sit there and you're like, fuck, he is good. He is really good at this character. And one could argue that this was a guy who everyone was like, was WWE misused him. WWE misused him. I mean, you can argue that. We all have that argument. We all have that argument, but at the same token, you can either sit there and talk about how the system didn't appreciate you, and you can sit there and wallow, or you can do what he did, and he is out there making moves in wrestling. He's making noise so that you have to pay attention to him. I mean, one could argue that this could work in the same vein for a lot of other wrestlers. Look at Malachi Black.
Yep.
When he was released in that crop of talent back in August, everyone was like, wow, like they released Black. Look at him now.
Yeah.
Look at him now. Like,
and this is the thing is with the recent set of releases. Okay. It's not so much, I'm not looking at the male talent that was released. I'm looking at the female talent that was released. Because yes, while right now AEW has 113 active competitors and they only have 3 hours of television, okay? They have 3 hours of television. I'm not counting YouTube. I'm not counting Elevation. I'm not counting Dark. They have more hours of available content, but they have 3 hours of television every week. They have 113 active competitors. Some of the female talent that was released in this last set of releases, AEW could use to strengthen their women's division, because a lot of people said right now, as well as they have been developing that women's division, your Nyla Roses and your Tay Contis and so on and so forth.
Your Bonnies.
You don't have that name value in that division outside of Britt Baker, which she was built. She had a little bit of following. She got signed to AEW. She's been built in AEW to where she's been. You have Thunder Rosa. After that,
Thunder Rosa came over with the NWA title. And she was a prime example of AEW being the land of opportunity.
Yep.
Because
the Forbidden Door.
And the Forbidden Door. And she really showed up, with that title more for a crossover match and ended up with a full-time job.
Yep.
And also with the recent acquisition of Ruby Soho, because Ruby Soho, in my opinion, was one of the females that was post the Four Horsewomen that really made a splash in WWE programming that never really got
got an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, phenomenal wrestler, great look, unbelievable talent.
And the thing is you have this female talent that got released. Do I think a Nia Jax ends up in AEW? Absolutely not.
No. I don't. Do I think a Valkyrie shows up?
Do I see Taya? Do I see Valkyrie showing up? Absolutely. But I think she would end up more in Impact because of the relationship she previously has there.
Yeah.
And that, what I see it, do I see an Ember Moon showing up in AEW? Absolutely. Because even if it's like a one-off type thing, Ember Moon brings that name value.
People recognize her, and yeah, I mean, she might not be able to call herself Ember Moon. And I know that there's this instant thing where fans want to say, oh, wrestler released from AEW or from WWE going to AEW, like, oh, Tony Khan's opening up the checkbook. Not necessarily. I mean, if that was the case, don't you think Bray Wyatt would have already been on television?
Yeah. Like, you know, I think that some of the female talent that was released, you're going to see in AEW. The only one that I think you're going to see on a big time stage type deal is probably Ember Moon, maybe Taya, maybe Valkyrie, just because of the following she's had in her career from Lucha Underground into Impact Wrestling and that. But I think I honestly think she'll end up back in Impact.
Yeah.
Now there's been talk, and of course there's been numerous reports with Bray Wyatt and that. I don't think, and as cool as Bray Wyatt coming in and joining the Dark Order would be because of his relationship with Brody Lee, aka John Huber. I think Wyatt and Bo Dallas show up at AEW part as the Wyndhams, but they are part of the House of Black.
Yeah, because Malachi Black even said himself that he had pitched an idea of a stable to Vince.
Yep.
Of Finn Balor as the Demon King exclusively, Malachi Black, Aleister Black formerly, and Bray Wyatt together with The Undertaker. Like, kind of like Undertaker's imprint was on all of them, and that's
it's essentially a updated modern Ministry of Darkness, but with guys that are actually that deal within all that play world.
Yeah, and that supernatural character, which is completely, would have been completely doable. I think right now Bray Wyatt has done enough teasing to where if Bray Wyatt shows up, it's got to be something big, and it's going to be something no one expects. And it's going to be at Full Gear, because it can't be on an episode of Dynamite or Rampage.
No, I mean it's got to be a pay-per-view.
Yeah, and you've got one right around the corner. Everyone knows his 90 days are over with, and it's one of those deals where during the Monday Night War and at the beginning of Nitro, everyone was jumping ship. All these older guys are coming over and whatnot. You have to think, although you're calling thinking of it as older guys or guys that Vince has used and doesn't need anymore, man, Bray Wyatt is still one of the most intelligent, creative, wrestlers that you have. Malachi Black didn't even get a chance to get his feet underneath him in his run in WWE. I mean, it was a very short run if you do a comparison of time. My big thing is you can't just bring talent like that in and just have them languish, because it's just going to be, it would be even worse than if you kept them in catering in WWE.
Yeah. And the thing is the thing is with Wyatt is an interesting dynamic. If you don't want to bring Wyatt in and have him join the Dark Order or have him join Malachi Black, which it seems like Malachi Black and Andrade have this soft partnership with the Pinnacle because of FTR.
Yeah.
There's been people that have like, you could, because of Wyatt doing the supernatural stuff, you could bring him into AEW as a higher power type thing for Miro, because Miro has this whole thing of his God.
Yep. And there's so many things that Bray Wyatt could do. And let's be honest, you have competitors there. Like, I'm excited for Bryan Danielson versus Miro. Even though we've seen Daniel Bryan versus Rusev, it still is it's new, but it's familiar. You know what I mean? And it's an exciting matchup. And you could have that same thing with a Wyndham versus a CM Punk, because I don't believe those two cross paths because Bray was just showing up when Punk was going out the door. You know, you could have.
He wasn't Bray Wyatt at that point. He was still coming off he had got sent back down to developmental to kind of drop weight and get repackaged off of Husky Harris.
Thank God. And I mean, even rekindling the feud between Jon Moxley and, Wyndham Rotundo, that would be absolutely cool. I don't think that this recent crop of superstars has to worry, because there is life outside of this. I mean, look at the Beef King. He's doing fine. I mean, and mind you, this is a guy who won the Universal Championship over a year ago. I mean, he was released and he's doing pretty well. So is EC3. He's running shows, for God's sakes. He's got his Take Back Your Narrative show.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to end up being one of these deals where they should worry for too long. I mean, it does suck, but wrestling is not what it was, even like we said, 15 years ago. So the opportunities are there if people are willing to take them.
And of course, and then of course you look at the opportunities that are happening internationally, because New Japan Pro Wrestling, they had a show today and we've already mentioned one of the things that happened where Okada challenged Buddy Matthews for New Japan Pro Wrestling Battle in the Valley next week, Saturday. Today, their event Power Struggle saw new champions. The House of Torture, Evil, Takahashi, and Sho won the never overweight six-man title. You had two more title changes on that show. You had El Desperado winning the junior heavyweight championship, and then Kenta winning the U.S. heavyweight championship. And then the big news after Okada calling out Buddy Matthews after the fact, Okada challenging Takahagi for the Wrestle Kingdom Night 1.
God, I forgot. That's right around the corner, isn't it?
Yep.
Holy crap. That's in less than 2 months.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
And the main events, it's already been set. It's already been announced that Wrestle Kingdom Wrestle Kingdom Night 1 is going to be for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Okada versus Ikaga.
I'm in shock that it's been almost a full year. Wow, dude.
Yep. So yeah, Takagi, Shingo Takagi will defend his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against Okada, on which was Okada was this year's G1 Climax winner.
Yep.
Which will, and the main event is set night for Wrestle Kingdom Night 1.
That's insane.
Okada walked out with the defunct IWGP World Heavyweight Championship and made the challenge, and it was accepted.
I mean, damn, that's going to be so good. That's going to be an amazing match. If superstars, if wrestlers are willing to travel internationally, the opportunity is there, especially in New Japan. And I mean, there's also like the forbidden door, because isn't Rocky Romero facing Daniel Bryan this week?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Romero is taking on Danielson.
Yeah. So thank you, Bryan Danielson. I am going to get this correct eventually, ladies and gentlemen.
As it's been said to me before, it's going to take a while, because people have literally just been like, Daniel Bryan Danielson. Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the best things I've heard all week is the Acclaim making fun of his father-in-law anyway. I mean, there's not much you can say on that one. No, it's we say this all the time, but I feel like a broken record when we say it. This is an exciting time still to be a pro wrestling fan. I mean, there's more options out there than the WWE, guys. I mean, you guys loved Buddy Murphy so much, right? And you were so upset when he got released.
Especially after his string of matches versus Aleister Black.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I'm just going to point this out to you. He's about to face the biggest name in Japanese wrestling. Yep. And dare I say, the biggest name ever in Japanese wrestling. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm an Okada guy. That dude has not had a bad match ever in any of the ones I've seen.
And we know Buddy Matthews can go.
Yeah, not only can he go, but have you seen him lately on his Instagram? That dude is jacked. Yep. He got jacked.
Yeah, he's been in the gym. Yeah. So it's the thing of, if you're a wrestling fan, enjoy the times you live in. Stop bitching. Stop complaining. Because at the end of the day, that's all you're doing. And recently I just watched the Paul Heyman documentary through the WWE Network Peacock again.
Yeah.
Heyman had the line in there of someone looking at him and going, at the end of the day, you're just bitching and complaining. Are you going to do something to change it, or are you just bitching? And most of us, we aren't in a position to change something. Enjoy the ride. Stop bitching about it. That's how I see it.
Stop worrying about ratings. Just watch wrestling.
Just watch wrestling. Enjoy it, because you know what? In a simple snap, we could easily be back to where we were 20 years ago, where wrestling was not fun, or it was not entertaining, and it was because there was no competition. There was nothing. We're back. We're in a time where there are plenty of avenues. There are plenty of independent talents getting more eyes on them due to higher end promotions throughout the country, and more opportunities whether it be Impact Wrestling, whether it be AEW, whether it be NXT 2.0. There's more opportunities out there for younger talent to get seen and get heard and find a way to that next step. But until they're there, enjoy what we have, because like myself, like Dan, we grew up in the ages of the big guys, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior. Then we lived through the ages of the smaller guys that were oh, you guys will never make money. You guys can't carry a company. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, so on. And then the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. We've been there. We've seen it all. Trust me, being a wrestling fan for the past 25 years of my life, because I've been a wrestling fan since I was like 3, maybe 4, because I saw it on TV, liked what I saw, fell in love with it. Enjoy it. Stop bitching about it. Just enjoy it. And like we said earlier, if it's something you don't like, change the channel. Don't watch it.
Yeah, it's kind of simple.
Do I sit on Monday nights and watch 3 hours of Raw? Do I sit on Friday nights and watch 2 hours of SmackDown? No, I don't. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't. Do I sit and watch the 3 hours of AEW? Sometimes I will, depending on what they have. I'll watch Raw and SmackDown, depending on what they have. But majority of the time, I will go to YouTube. I'll go to their websites. I'll watch highlights. I'll watch clips, because we live in a time where it's so easily and readily accessible. We don't live in a time where you know what? Both shows are on at the same time. One match has The Rock versus Triple H for the WWF title. The other channel has the Four Horsemen versus the NWO. What are you going to watch?
Yep.
Okay. Commercial, flip back. Shit, commercial, flip back. Like, or videotape the one. We are now in a time where if you want to watch AEW, watch AEW. Do you necessarily have to watch WWE? No, because WWE has agreements with Peacock. They have agreements with Hulu. Granted, the Hulu cut some of the stuff out, but they give you the major points of the show. Or you could go to the WWE website and go and watch the highlights. Like it's social media. It has made wrestling so accessible in 2021 that if you miss it, you're still going to be able to see it somewhere.
Yeah.
And if they do something you don't like, all right, talk about it through friends. There's no reason to bitch about it, because you know what? At the end of the day, you're not Tony Khan. You're not Vince McMahon. Shut the hell up.
Mic drop.
Yeah, basically. But it's 11 p.m. It's a Saturday night. We're going to go enjoy the remainder of said Saturday night. But until next week, because next week, Full Gear.
Yes.
So we get a Full Gear preview.
Yes, we do.
Maybe next week we'll have a guest on to discuss said Full Gear.
Yes.
But for Dan, I'm Pat G. This has been the TTRP. Follow us on the social medias. We will catch you later. And as always, be safe, be kind, be healthy, and we'll see you on the flip side.
The Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast is brought to you by Gear Network and ShopGear.com. We can be listened to via Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you can get your podcasts. The TTRP introduction was done by Trevor Dugan. The show is hosted by Patrick Gancheski and Daniel Roberts. Post-production of the TTRP is done by Patrick Gancheski and John Cimino. If you'd like to follow us via social media, you can search Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast on Facebook. You can follow us at Twitter by using the name Turnbuckle_Talk. Or if you have questions or concerns, you can reach us via email at turnbuckletlkradio@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, downloading our episodes, following us on social media, and interacting with us.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.